We are so pleased that you're here today, and we have some introductions to do as we have our speakers, our guests today, this morning, defending our democracy. We're going to hear from invited speakers on this very important topic called immigration. Today's program will be recorded and uploaded to our website. So if you know folks who are missing this morning, they are welcome to watch it in a future viewing. Before we begin, I want to ask you to please silence your devices, and please be aware that the restrooms are located out the door there and down the hall to the right. Thanks. It's like left, right. We very much appreciate our partnership with Niles Discovery Church. We're privileged to be here, which provides this extraordinary space for our community programs. And just as an announcement, in this time of food insecurity, please know that the Niles Discovery Church maintains the little pantry. It's located in the small little shed in the parking lot and is open 24/7. Non-perishable food items are gratefully accepted to help those in our community who are in need. I want to start with a brief word about the League, and many of you members are very familiar with this, but it's a national membership organization that's more than 100, maybe 104 years old. And in this city, we are more than 50, in our 3 cities, we are more than 50 years old. Our mission is to encourage participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we influence public policy through study, through education, and through advocacy. Now, we are not nonpartisan. We never endorse or oppose a particular candidate or political party. However, it's important to note that once individuals are elected, they are no longer candidates. They are now our public servants, responsible for representing all of their constituents, regardless of party affiliation. Holding elected officials accountable to the public interest is not a partisan act. It is a vital function of a healthy democracy. We are nonpartisan, but not neutral. We do not stay silent when democracy is under threat, voter access restricted, or misinformation spreads. When these things happen, the League has a responsibility to speak out clearly and forcefully. Today's format will consist of our 2 speakers, and at times at the very end, we will have audience questions. So if you have comments or questions, we do have 2 mics, and we have runners. Yes, runners. And so you don't need to come up and rush. Just raise your hands and someone will bring a mic to you so that your question can be addressed. Now, on to my first slide. Today's program and all of our programs are based on our positions, that we have a position. And the League of Women Voters nationally in 2008 adopted the immigration policy. There have been a few updates and changes and lobbying, lots of advocacy for immigration rights. So our brief, and thank you, Jane Mueller, for providing these slides for us. In brief, our position consists of promoting reunification of immediate families. We note that we need to meet the economic, business, and employment needs of the United States. We know also that we support responsiveness to those facing political persecution or humanitarian crisis. And to encourage education, we promote student visas. Ensure fair treatment under the law for all persons, and in transition to a reform system, support provisions for unauthorized immigrants already in this country to earn legal status. The League continues to work towards immigration rights, and in a recent news release of June 4th, 25, after the Supreme Court's failure to halt deportation to countries other than country of origin. And this is quoted from the National. This shameful and dangerous decision is a direct attack, and I need to move that forward this way. There it is. Direct attack on the right to due process and will cause irreparable harm to the most vulnerable among us. To allow the administration to deport residents to any third country without due process puts every American resident and citizen at risk and is a disgrace to the principles this country claims to stand for. Pretty powerful statement. And so the League continues to be powerful in its advocacy. So this morning we want to introduce, and we'll have Judy and Andrea come forward and introduce our guests. Also, if you're interested in our immigration position in brief, there is a page out in the table in the back if you'd like to take one with you. Our members know where to access that on our League management website. But if you're interested and don't get a copy, please notify our board through our website or through our email, our general email, and we can send you a link via email. Thank you. But we do have about 20 or 30 copies in the back. Take care.
Okay, this morning I have the privilege of introducing someone to you who is, to put it mildly, a very interesting person. James M. Wood, okay? Jim was a litigation attorney with almost 50 years of civil trial and pro bono experience as a partner at Reed Smith LLP. His passion has been to provide services to the LGBTQ plus community as a panel attorney at ALRP, which I'll define in a minute, and as a senior pro bono counsel at the Transgender Law Center in San Francisco. One of his cases involved representing an HIV positive pilot for privacy violations against the federal government. The case eventually made its way to the United States Supreme Court. Jim has been recognized by the AIDS Legal Referral Panel for his work with the ALRP Clint Hockenberry Leadership Award 2014, named for ALRP's first executive director, and it is ALRP's highest honor given to people whose work reflects a lifetime of service to the HIV/AIDS community. He also has received the California Lawyer Angel Award in 2007 as one of the state's outstanding pro bono attorneys for representation of California school children with diabetes to ensure that they received care throughout the school day. Since retiring from the firm, he has served his parish, and I forgot to ask him how to pronounce it, Jarlath Catholic Church in Fruitvale, providing legal services to immigrant members of the community. He recently became a leader with Faith in Action East Bay. But it's not all work. For fun, he has been in the past a writer in the AIDS Life Cycle Ride from San Francisco to LA. He did this 3 times, and He had so much fun that he did it as a roadie, which means he was helping him run the whole thing 4 times. And I want you to know I didn't sit up here because I was important, but because I didn't want to fall down the stairs, up the stairs.
Hello, I want to introduce our 2 other speakers. Thank you, Jim. It will be nice to hear from you and what you have to say. Our 2 other speakers are Christopher Martinez, and Chris is the executive director of the East Bay Spanish-speaking Citizens Foundation. It's a local nonprofit serving the immigrant community located in Fruitvale and serving all of Oakland and beyond. He has 28 years of experience in nonprofit leadership positions, previously with the Catholic Charities of the East Bay, where he was the chief of programs, and prior to Catholic Charities, San Francisco, where he was the director of refugee and immigrant services. Chris is bilingual, English and Spanish, and he's an immigrant himself from Guatemala, arriving as a child, and he has lived experience of the challenges facing newcomers. He has devoted his adult career to serving immigrant and refugee communities just as a way of giving back to those who helped him on his journey. We're glad you're here, Chris. And our next speaker is Alyssa Simpson, an immigration attorney. Alyssa is a graduate of UC Berkeley School of Law and has been practicing immigration law at various nonprofit agencies since 1991. She focuses on naturalization, family-based immigration, asylum, DAWA, what is that? Okay, great. I should have looked that up, but I didn't. Thank you. And T and U visas, special immigrant juvenile status, TPS, and DACA. We know what DACA is. Deferred action for childhood arrivals. I know that. I know somebody who is a DACA person. Most recently, Alyssa is part of the legal services team of the Alameda County Immigration, Legal, and Education Partnership, for which the Spanish-speaking Citizens Foundation, which Chris represents, is a core partner. Alyssa is bilingual in Spanish and English, and for fun, Alyssa likes to bake and spend time with her granddaughter. So, thank you for coming. We have a really good panel of speakers that we want to hear from every one of them on this really important topic that's been in the news and in the media and in our visual field. If we watch, television, all different kinds of things that we are not, that many of us are not happy with. So we're going to have we're going to have Jim speak first, then Chris, and then Alyssa. Okay? Jim. Does he need slides himself?
Well, good morning, all. Thank you for the opportunity to come to speak about one of my passions these days. I said last night that after retiring from the law firm, I should be playing cards and doing puzzles and like that, but this is the best work that I've been doing. I'm working with Faith in Action East Bay, and it reminds me of your group, and it reminds me of the civil rights movement. It reminds me of voting rights. Where did it begin? It began with women, all of them. And Faith in Action East Bay The executive director is a male, but everybody else doing the work on the ground is a woman. Grateful to you for the work that you're doing, leading the way for very, very important work that needs to be done as well. Today I'm going to be talking about sanctuary cities, and let me give you the disclosure. Supposed to be talking about Niles, Fremont-Union City. They're not sanctuary cities. Pretend to be, they say they are, they're not. We'll get through that, and that's kind of the spoiler, but we'll explain that, that's how we got there. So we're going to be talking about what a model sanctuary city is, what it should be, if it's truly to be a sanctuary city. We're going to be talking about how it is that the sanctuary city movement developed, and I'm going to suggest a model for what a sanctuary city should be for these three. Actually, every city in Alameda County should be, if they are sincere and honest about their good goal and desire to provide sanctuary to people living in our communities. Why it matters? Well, this began January of 2024. No, 2025. Is it only 9 months? We will end sanctuary cities that have resulted in so many needless deaths. Cities that refuse to cooperate with federal authorities will not receive taxpayer dollars. And that's the threat that he makes. Anybody that declares itself to be a sanctuary city is going to lose federal funding. No more sanctuary cities. They protect the criminals, not the victims. They are disgracing our country and are being mocked all over the world. Working on papers to withhold all federal funding for any city or state that allows these death traps to exist. And that's really the fear that every one of our politicians, when you go to city council here in Niles, Fremont, Union City, Oakland, any of it. Well, if we do that, we're going to put a target on our back and we're going to lose federal funding. So they are working from a place of fear rather than as a place of social responsibility. So I'm going to briefly talk about the history of sanctuary cities, sanctuary cities in Alameda County, what I believe are the key elements of being a sanctuary city, and then propose a model for that based upon San Francisco and Los Angeles, which are really, truly the only true sanctuary cities in the Bay Area. I'm going to go through this very quickly, but the sanctuary movement began in the early 1980s when hundreds of thousands of Central Americans were leaving and coming to from El Salvador and Guatemala, coming to the United States to escape the civil wars down there. And the sanctuary city movement really began with in places of worship. Began with a Methodist minister in the 1980s that started the sanctuary city movement of truly providing a sanctuary, place of refuge, a place to go to be safe for these refugees. It was a faith-based compassion and movement. The churches and synagogues within the country began to create the sanctuary. It was very, very slow moving. But the core principles of a sanctuary movement is that it was faith-based, that they worked on civil disobedience and civil initiatives to create sanctuary cities, and then created direct advocacy work and protection for immigrants seeking safety within our country. The movement eventually grew to cities and states very, very slowly over a period of time. And it took quite a while to do that. But again, the core principle is that faith-based, that we would provide sanctuaries, safe places to those within our community who were escaping all different forms of violence and so on, a safe place. That's not what it is now. There's really very few places, churches and so on, that do provide a true sanctuary within the state. But here are the history of development of sanctuary cities in Alameda County. No surprise, Berkeley was the first to become a sanctuary city. And Berkeley remains as a model sanctuary city. And then that kind of morphed out to developing community and religious activism that led to the creation of sanctuary cities, where local councils, city councils, began to act and create sanctuary cities. All right, here's a list of self-described sanctuary cities in Alameda County. Self-described, that's important. What cities are missing? There are 3 that are missing. Let's start with Piedmont. No surprise. Dublin and Livermore. They don't even pretend to be sanctuary cities. There is no policy. Some say, well, San Lorenzo is not on your list. Well, San Lorenzo's unincorporated, so don't qualify as a sanctuary city. Yeah. So these are what I believe are the elements of a sanctuary city, model sanctuary city, that first, it prohibits the use of any city resource in assisting ICE or any immigration enforcement individuals in any manner whatsoever. It bans any form of data sharing within whatever database that the city has. We're not going to share that with ICE. It limits city custody action, no holding, arrest, or transfer to ICE officials. Restricts access to city sites. The mayor in Chicago just issued an executive order saying that ICE will not be able to go on any public city-owned property for any reason whatsoever. We're trying to get Mayor Lee in Oakland to do something like that, but okay, leave it there. No administrative detention if ICE issues an administrative order or detention request. We're not going to do it. Limits involuntary data collection. Prohibits any form of joint operations with immigration agencies. And that's where it gets a little dicey, where you take a look at what happened in LA a few months ago, where you saw LAPD all over the streets, seemingly working with ICE directly or indirectly to get people that they were after. We met with the Alameda County Sheriff to get what her position is. And she is serious and intent, but in my, can I say my opinion? In my opinion, it won't go far enough. And she says, all right, we're not going to cooperate with ICE. We're not going to share data or any information with ICE. But if there's a situation of what we perceive to be civil disobedience, then to protect public safety, we have to step in and protect the public. Now that's fuzzy, that's hazy, that leaves them all different kinds of leeway to see the kind of things that happen in LA and other places, New Orleans, Chicago, on and on. The list goes on and on. When ICE was at the Coast Guard Island a few weeks ago, we saw that Alameda County Sheriff and Oakland Police Department were not there the first day. They said, okay, we're not going to be there, even though there were protesters there, but that broke down, became a little bit blurred about what they were doing. All right, so it's, sorry. A lot of the cities have what they call a sanctuary city based upon a resolution. Two different kinds of things that city councils can do, resolution and ordinance. Resolution is a suggestion. We think that this is a good idea, and we think we should do this. Gutless, meatless, heartless, any other kind of less that you can think of. An ordinance is a law. This is the law of the city of San Francisco, LA. This is the law. It's not a suggestion, it is the law. It carries the same obligations and consequences of any other law that exists. So a lot of the cities, in my opinion, shield themselves by saying that we're a sanctuary city, but only by way of resolution, which frankly is what the three Union City, Niles, and Fremont have done. It's a suggestion. It's a good idea. We're going to suggest that the police department not cooperate with ICE. You need a law. If it's to have any meaning whatsoever, there are going to be consequences if you violate this ordinance. It's kind of a feel-good situation in Union City. They are honest in the sense that they call themselves a compassionate city. Meatless, gutless, meaningless. It provides no protection for those in our community that have the greatest need of protection from ICE. I'm not going to go into detail of it, but the history of it is it was first unanimously adopted in 2017. And it says we're going to treat everybody equally. And we're not going to enter any kind of partnership with ICE or enforcement services. But it's a resolution, it's a suggestion, it's a thought. And there's absolutely no teeth, no enforcement whatsoever in this. It leaves a lot of discretion to those charged with protecting those in our community. It leaves a lot of discretion with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. I'm going to jump ahead of myself for a moment, but let's compare Union City and Dublin and Niles are even worse, and we'll just leave it at that, okay? The resolution of Union City is Union City shall not engage in activities solely for the purpose of enforcing federal immigration law. And it goes on. You know, it's good language. It's what it is that they should be doing. Let's compare this to the ordinance. The ordinance, the law of San Francisco and LA is pretty close to this as well. No department, agency, commission, officer, or employee of the City of Council shall use any funds or resources to assist in the enforcement of federal immigration law, and it goes on. No agency, no department, no unit, no person shall. That is the law. It's like you shall not drive through a red light. If you do, there are consequences. San Francisco, if any agency, department, commission, officer, or employee shares any of this information, it's a violation of the law with consequences. I've spoken about what the criticisms are. Let's talk quickly about why I believe that City and County of San Francisco is a model sanctuary city law. This is the history of it. We don't need to go through this. It's been the good part of the law, and the reason that Faith in Action East Bay has presented an ordinance to the city of Oakland, primarily based, I mean, you know, if I submitted this when I was in college, I would have gotten an F for plagiarism. I mean, why I can't really improve on anything that San Francisco has done. It's the model. We've added some new language from LA, which passed its sanctuary city law in December about the use of technology. But the key elements, there are specifics about sharing information, early release, detaining people, cooperating with ICE, and so on. But essentially, the law is no person, agency, commission, group, person will do any of these following things that, in essence, will help ICE or any immigration enforcement. By the way, in Oakland, the process is going through. It's with the city attorney now. Twice they've taken a look at it, and hopefully that the ordinance, the sanctuary city ordinance, the law, will get to the Oakland City Council sometime in January. The good thing about using San Francisco as a model for a sanctuary city law is that this has been tested in the courts. San Francisco first created sanctuary city law. Trump said, okay, we're cutting off funds. That's it. You're not going to get any significant, you're not going to get any funds from the federal. So the city and county of San Francisco, joined by the city of Oakland, a number of other cities up and down the West Coast, sued in the United States District Court, Northern District, California, and the court said, what sanctuary city is valid, and any threat to withhold federal funds is invalid. I went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. They said that's correct. Sanctuary city is the law. Trump cannot withhold federal funds. Went to the Supreme Court. They said this is so decided we're not going to consider it. So that's why we're pushing the San Francisco with the city of Oakland and other places. We've had conversations down here with a member of Union City Council. And he said it. Not important who it is, it's important what the consequences were. That I think that the reaction to most city governments is, as I said earlier at the start of this, we do this, it's a target on our back. Well, you can't work from a place of fear. Take a look at what's happening throughout the country to people living in our cities. Taken from their families, taken from their livelihoods, without any type of due process. And it's really, I think, in my opinion, again, it's the moral obligation, not the socially correct obligation, it's the moral obligation of every city that has undocumented individuals living there to do everything that they can to protect them. Otherwise, in my opinion, it's a hypocrite. It's Hippocratic. It's hypocritical. And to say that we are a sanctuary city, in my opinion, is a lie. People living in our communities, everybody, regardless of status, deserves better. LA sanctuary city law, pretty much the same thing, except they have a greater protection on the use and the accessibility of technology. There's a lawsuit, Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Los Angeles sanctuary city law. That hasn't been resolved. It's still pending in district court. Use of technology, it's all different types of technology that the city and counties have, but it's really important that the technology as well as the personnel protected from any type of access by the federal government. There's also discussion, I have a discussion here what's Union City and what the three cities can do, but I've already said what they don't have and what it is they can't do, so there's really no point in going through that again. All right, so thank you for this. It's a lot of ground to cover, but I hope that it becomes our passion, each one of us, to see that the cities, the city government, the governments that we're living in, do everything that they can, protect every citizen, every individual within our community, and to call them out if they aren't doing it. Okay, thank you very much.
I think we'll ask you to hold your questions until we hear from the other two speakers. I think that would be the best thing instead of going down a rabbit hole and not having our other two speakers be able to give their presentations. So, Chris, do you want to come up here?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's what he presented was just so important and very much something that I think we desperately need right now. With the fear in the community, just how people are afraid to go to work, afraid to take their kids to school, upholding or having a law that says we see you, we protect you, we validate you, we want you here, and we won't cooperate with what's happening is so important and so necessary. And so I'm very happy to be with you this morning to share with you a little bit of the work that we're doing with the Alameda County Immigrant Legal and Education Partnership, known as ACLIEP. Some people pronounce it ACLIEP. Whatever you want, however you want to pronounce it, it's still the important thing is to remember the phone number. The phone number is important. 510-241-4011. And I have lots of handouts to leave with everyone that has the phone number. I'll talk a little bit more about what those handouts are. And then, and as Andrea says, we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end. But these are the partner agencies that are part of the ACLIEP network. And I represent Spanish-Speaking Citizens Foundation. I'm the executive director there. I've been the executive director for 4 years. And I am so proud of the work that we do. We're a nonprofit that's actually celebrating 60 years. This is our 60th anniversary being in the community, supporting the community. We just had a wonderful celebration a couple weeks ago where we heard stories from people who've been impacted over the years. It's just really wonderful to kind of be in community in spite of these difficult times that we're living in. But we're so proud to be in partnership with Faith in Action East Bay, who's another core partner of ACLIEP, as well as Street Level Health Project, Eden Church, Eden United Church of Christ, that's located in Hayward, and then, of course, Centro Legal de la Raza, another organization that I think is about to celebrate its 55th year serving the community. They are the lead agency in the ACLIEP network. And what is it that we do in ACLIEP? We provide 3 different types of core service areas. We do community education and training, which is something that we're doing today. Today is about educating, informing, letting you know what's available. Alyssa is going to talk very briefly about what Know Your Rights and some of the ICE trends that we're seeing today. And then I'll conclude with a little bit more information about how to get help from the hotline. We also provide the rapid response. Our hotline right now is open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day of the week. So we're not quite at a level to be 24/7 as other hotlines are, but the weekend hours is something that was recently added, again, in response to what we're seeing is increased enforcement over the weekends, particularly in South County of Alameda. So it is definitely something that we need to be mindful of. And so I'm very happy that we're open now every day of the week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then we also provide the emergency legal services, which Alyssa will talk a little bit about that. But if someone is detained and needs representation, needs legal support, we can activate an emergency legal response to try to win their release from detention. We can also provide some services ahead of any type of detention through legal consultations, through clinics, trying to find avenues for people to obtain lawful status or to regulate their status. So those are some of the key areas of service that we provide in ACLIEP. This slide I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse of sort of like what we're seeing and how busy we are these days. So when the hotline was first launched, we probably maybe less than 100 calls on the hotline. But since February, we've seen an over 500% increase. Just in the month of October alone, we received over 1,400 calls, mainly in part because of what he described at Coast Guard Island, where there was a threat of a surge that got pulled back, but still the damage was done. And there was a lot of tension, a lot of fear in the community. And what was happening at Coast Guard Island really generated a lot of calls to our hotline, not so much of people saying, we believe there's ICE in the community, but more of someone was injured at the protest, or we're seeing these type of abuses at the protest. And so I think in some ways our hotline became a little bit of a community 911 service, which is not what we're designed to be. But I think, kudos to all our dispatchers who really take these calls with a lot of compassion, a lot of heart, and try to help people understand and navigate what their rights are and what is available out there. But October was definitely an anomaly. I think right now we're averaging about close to 400 calls per month. So that just shows you, and that's not to say that there are 400 incidents happening. It's just that 400 calls are coming in because people are that afraid. They just see something, they think it's ICE, they call us. Our job is to help de-escalate, help identify, help calm fears, and if need be, send a team out to verify. And then, as I said, if someone is being detained, provide that legal support. So what I'm going to do right now is going to turn it over to Alyssa to share a little bit about some of the ICE trends we're seeing. She'll talk maybe a little bit about who is most at risk, talk a little bit about the asylum process, which is at this point under threat. And then she's going to give a very brief Know Your Rights presentation so that you all know exactly what your rights are under the Constitution. This is what we do a much more longer, elaborate Know Your Rights to the community, but we just wanted to give you a taste of what Know Your Rights presentation looks like. And then I will conclude with sharing information about how to access help on the hotline. And if we have time, a little bit about how the community can help identify whether or not immigration enforcement is actually happening, identify the vehicles, the agents, what they're wearing, and just ways that you can help us on the hotline. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Alyssa.
Hello, thank you. So before I get started, I just wanted to say something about the very first slide. I'm an attorney, so you tell me what the law is and I'll work with it. Just challenging in times like this when policy and interpretations of law seem to change day by day, and then they all have to get litigated, and then they change again and again and again. But that's what I do. But one day, many years ago, I took a break and I went to a conference that Cal was holding where academics talked about immigration around the world. And there seemed to be a consensus there about what a compassionate and functional immigration system would look like. And what it looks like is your first slide. Family reunification, opportunities for employment, visas and employment-based immigration, something for people who fall through the cracks, humanitarian options. It's what your policy is. And it actually is the basis of what the United States immigration system looks like. The problem is Congress cannot keep its hands off the immigration system, and so we have, for example, a family-based immigration system. But if you've been in the country for any period of time, you might have to go out of the country for 10 years before you can take advantage of that, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all these things in place, but we monkey around with them all the time so that we look like we're being tough on things. And so that's why the system doesn't function. But we, in theory, actually have a system that provides for all of the things that people believe is an ideal immigration system. We just have to make it work. Anyway, I was very happy to see that slide. So who may be at higher risk? The short answer to that question is we have no idea. I have done consultations with people who have orders of removal against them and serious criminal convictions, and they go to their ICE check-ins and they walk out with an appointment for next year. And I have done consultations with people who are simply checking in, they have their asylum cases filed, they've followed all the rules, they've complied with every check-in, and they get detained. So the answer is we don't know. But in theory, the people who are at greatest risk are people who do have criminal convictions, people who have final orders of deportation, And there's also an issue about people who've come within the past 2 years. They can do a quicker removal process for people who have been here for less than 2 years, and after you've been here for 2 years, you get more protections. So they're trying to get people before they've been here for 2 years. And then many people who have been released into the country have check-ins with ICE on a regular basis, and as I just said, you don't know what's going to happen at those ICE check-ins. So we try to consult with people and let them know what the possible risks are and what might happen to them, but it's very, very difficult to be able to advise people about what's going on because we don't know what's going on. It changes day by day. We would talk to people about their legal options, hopefully in advance of their check-ins or anything like that. It's great if people can come in for consultations and actually go over what all of their legal possibilities might be. And also, people don't like to talk about this, but we should have them working on family preparedness plans for what to do in case of emergency. A long time ago, around 2007, I used to do these presentations, these family preparedness presentations, and we put them in the context of like your earthquake go kit, because it's very similar, what you might need in case of a fire or an earthquake or something like that. You need to have your documents in a place where people can access them. You need to know what your meeting spot is going to be. You need to know who the people are to contact in case one of your family members is missing, et cetera. And it was easier to talk to people in that context because there's just so much fear around the immigration issue that people don't really like to talk about it. But it's best if they do have a preparedness plan so that in case of emergency, the people in the family know what to do and how and who to contact. So asylum is under threat right now. Asylum is meant to be a humanitarian protection for people who are facing persecution or have faced persecution in their countries of origin. There are all kinds of things happening with the asylum cases right now. The first thing is that the law changed, and they put something in the law that says you have to seek asylum within the first year of arrival, which is kind of odd because most people who are valid asylum seekers are coming to the country in crisis, and the first thing they think about is survival. It's not legal status, but you are supposed to submit your asylum application as quickly as you can and within the first year. And after that, you might be prohibited from receiving asylum, and you might only be able to receive other forms of protection that don't lead to the full range of protections that asylum gives you. But in some ways, that's the least of people's concerns. You're supposed to get a work permit within 6 months of having submitted your asylum application. They're trying to change that now to 1 year. You are supposed to be able to apply for asylum if you're afraid to go back to your country of origin. They're trying to change that by saying, we have an agreement with Honduras that Honduras will receive people from the United States. They are actually, I think it's 250 people that they will receive. But anyway, why didn't you stop in Honduras on the way here and apply for asylum there? Or why don't you go there and wait and apply for asylum there? But there have been deportations to countries in Africa that have returned people to their home countries without allowing them the opportunity to seek asylum. So we have these third country agreements, but they don't work, and they don't actually provide humanitarian protection to people who are in need of humanitarian protection. However, it might mean that you're not allowed to file an asylum application in the United States because you didn't apply for asylum in one of these countries. Also, we have worked for many, many, many years under understanding that you could fill your asylum application out in a fairly skeletal manner and say, I'm afraid to return to my country because of this thing. I will, you're not going to give me a hearing on that for 3 years. By the time I have my hearing, I will give you a detailed explanation of anything that happened to me and why it is that I need this protection. And now they're saying, oh, that application isn't properly filled out. We're just going to dismiss it, and then you have nothing pending, and we can deport you. So all kinds of really crazy things are happening with the asylum system. Plus, there's a freeze on asylum now because of the incident with the National Guard shooting, and particularly for the 19 countries under the travel ban, there's going to be vastly increased scrutiny on those cases. So, yeah, I've already talked about the issues of people getting arrested at their ICE check-ins. That is also happening at the immigration court. You should do it the right way and follow the process. But if you follow the process, we might have ICE agents outside the court to grab you and detain you. So that has been happening. It's been happening less in San Francisco. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's been happening less at the San Francisco immigration courts than it was before, but it is still an issue. And again, we're not really sure exactly who the people are who are at most risk of being picked up outside their hearings. But for sure, it is a higher risk for people who have been here for less than 2 years. So what are we doing in response to that? Lots of different things. Of course, the Supreme Court says we can't get nationwide injunctions anymore, but case by case, people are trying to do what they can to enforce what we believe the laws to say and mean, and to protect people. And one of the ways that we have had the greatest degree of success is with habeas petitions, which, challenge the legality of a person's detention. I don't think we need to go through all the details of this, but the thing to know about this is that around the country, thousands of people have received protection under habeas at this point. So it's inefficient to have to litigate these cases case by case, but this is one small, bright spot where attorneys are having success in getting people the opportunity to present their cases and not be subject to detention for the entire period of time while they're litigating their cases. A lot of what we're doing right now is informing people about their rights with respect to ICE. So I'm going to go over this really, really quickly, but we are available to provide these presentations regularly. And I get very fired up about this when I do these presentations because it makes me so very angry that law enforcement does not follow the Constitution and the law. And this is not something new. I've been doing these presentations since 1992. We're seeing a lot of political theater right now. We're seeing a lot of splashy media stuff right now, and we are seeing worse violations right now. But ICE has never been particularly well trained. When it was the INS, they weren't particularly well trained. And they take advantage of the fact that people do not know what their constitutional rights are. And they violate the law all the time. And it makes me so very angry. So I love doing presentations for the community where I can explain to people what their rights are. Everyone in this country has rights. You may know that, Justice Kavanaugh said it was a minor inconvenience for a U.S. citizen to be detained. So we're going to have continuing litigation on this and find out exactly what the parameters of our constitutional rights are. But we still have them. And so, so I like to tell people about them. One of the first things we tell people is to not run. Running away from ICE is evidence that you have reason to run away from them. We've seen some things where there are some ICE agents who are very poorly trained and very ill-equipped, and people successfully run away from them. So I'm not sure that this is the best advice for all circumstances, but generally speaking, we tell people don't run. There are all kinds of things you can say about that. Am I being detained? Am I free to leave? I choose not to answer your questions. You don't have reasonable suspicion to detain me. You don't have probable cause to arrest me. But the general rule is you shouldn't run away from them, but you don't have to engage with them. You can remain silent. You don't have to give them any information. The only thing ICE has to prove in order to begin a deportation process against you is that you were not born in this country. Beyond that, it's your obligation to show that you have a legal right to be here. So the amount of information they need from you is minimal. So you really should be clamming up right from the start and not engaging with them. We always talk about having an attorney. That's a really weird situation because most attorneys don't make contracts with people who aren't doing anything. You know, I'm an undocumented person. I don't have a family member to petition me. I don't have a job that will get me, you know, but I'm afraid of ICE. Will you be my lawyer? Most people don't engage at that point. So it's, I mean, what you want is for people to have an idea of who they might hire to be their lawyer when they need one, but they don't necessarily just have a person on call for them. And then also we talk to people in the community about stepping up for their neighbors, you know, documenting interactions, being the witnesses, being the observers, and being prepared to provide evidence of an illegal arrest if it comes to that. In a situation where you're in a car, of course, there are slightly different rules if you're the driver because you don't have the right to be driving unless you have a document allowing you to do that. In California, you can obtain a document that allows you to drive even if you are undocumented, but that document is it's not conclusive evidence that you don't have the right to be in the United States under the immigration system, but it's not good. However, you do have to present that document to a law enforcement official if you're stopped for a traffic violation. Nevertheless, you don't have to engage with ICE agents, particularly if you're a passenger. You don't have to engage with ICE agents. They still need a reason to have stopped you. You have rights. So we go through all of that and explain that whole process to people. And also one of the main things that we focus on in all of these presentations is safety. You know, technically, you have the right to resist an illegal arrest. I do not talk about that in community settings. I don't want to be responsible for getting someone physically injured or worse. So we always focus on safety and, you know, thinking about what you are willing to do in a circumstance where an ICE official may be violating your rights. You know, you have rights to stand up to that, but you may decide, you know, I will go this far and no further, and at this point I will capitulate. Because mostly we just want people to be safe. If you have lawful immigration status, you are supposed to carry evidence of that with you. Again, that does not mean that if a random person walks up to you on the street, you're obligated to show them that documentation, but you are obligated to carry it with you. So if they were to have a valid reason to request that, you would be obligated to show that to them. You do have to carry your work permit or your green card with you. And that's another can of worms, because if you lose a green card, it costs hundreds of dollars to replace, and it takes like 9 months, and you can't get a new social security card until you have a new green card, and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes people choose to carry a copy with them. That's technically not kosher. You're supposed to carry the document, but you have to make a decision about how much inconvenience you're willing to go through if, you know, you lose your wallet or get robbed or whatever. So that's also a complicated issue that people have to think about. If ICE comes to your home, this is the place where we've had the most success in teaching the community. ICE almost never, ever, ever has a valid judicial warrant. They have these things that they call warrants that aren't. They're just pieces of paper that say warrant on them, but they're internal documents. They're not signed by judges, and so they don't have the right to break into your home. And I always talk to people about that. Like, hasn't everyone in the world seen a cop show? I mean, how many times do the cops on these TV shows stand there going like, let us in, let us in, let us in, let us in. They don't do that. They bang down your door. That's because they have warrants. ICE does not. ICE stands out there and bangs on your door. And so the community has learned not to open the door, which will be interpreted as consent to their entering and questioning people in the building. you do have to teach everyone in the house about this. You know, there's lots of cases where kids have opened the door, but you're not supposed to, you don't have to open the door unless there's a valid warrant, and there won't be a valid warrant. And we've had so much success with that ICE has kind of backed off on doing that because they realize how inefficient it is, and they don't actually pick people up in those encounters anymore. But it's good to know, good to talk to people about it. We have in our presentations examples of the difference between a valid judicial warrant and an administrative warrant. And, you know, slip it under the door or stick it in the window. I'm not going to open the door to take it from you and look at it, review it. So, you know, if you have a valid warrant, show it to me in some way, but I'm not opening the door, and otherwise I'm done. And again, we want the entire community involved in this. We want your friends and neighbors out in the street documenting what they're doing and letting you know when they really go, because they're going to stop knocking after a while, but that doesn't mean they're going to leave. They're going to stand out in the street and wait for you to leave the house. So we want everyone to have phone trees set up so that they can talk to each other about when they've actually left the area. Yeah, so we want people to know the hotline numbers for the Bay Area rapid response networks, like ACLIEP in Alameda County, and to have their family preparedness plans. We have these Know Your Rights cards, where that allows people to not have to, yeah, we've got one here, to visibly, to state out loud that they are asserting the right to remain silent. They can just show the red card. I want everyone to have a red card. The same way, if you have a city ID in your city, I want everyone to get that document. I don't want these documents to be things that undocumented people carry. I want these to be things everyone carries, so that if ICE comes up to me in the street, I show them a red card, because everyone should be helping their neighbors in this way. Everyone should have a red card. Everyone should be prepared to show the red card, so that that's the response they get. That's the red card in more detail. And we can talk some more about how to get help from the network.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I know we're a little over time, so we'll start to wrap up. There's a lot more slides. And again, when we do these presentations, these Know Your Rights presentations, they're generally about 90 minutes long. So they're pretty thorough. We go over a lot of details. And sometimes, if there's time, we can do some role play too. I think role play also helps retain information, particularly just, you know, experiencing it is much different than just hearing it. But the main thing I wanted to share with you in these last few slides is just how to get help from ACLIEP. The main thing is to call. And really, as I said before, we're getting calls from people who are reporting all kinds of activity. That's totally fine. We're there, we're trained, we're trying to help assess. So we are encouraging people to call the hotline. But if you call the hotline, it also helps avoid false reports. The image that you see up there is an image that was of something that happened a while ago. The hotline was activated. It was people called in saying that they see ICE. We sent verifiers out there. It turned out to be Fish and Wildlife doing, you know, a routine inspection at the port. But again, this is the level of anxiety and fear that's in the community right now. So at this point, every law enforcement, any law enforcement, looks like ICE to them. So I think we're just encouraging people to call. We're also encouraging people to share that information with the people that they know. And again, it's about creating power, not panic. And as I said before, we can send out a team to verify if we have suspicion of ICE activity. We can help people with getting legal support. If someone is being detained, we can activate a legal response. And then something really important, because Alyssa mentioned about the arrests at immigration court and at ICE check-ins, we can also help coordinate an accompaniment team to join people to their interviews. Why is that a huge benefit? Because I think if the court system, if they see that somebody is supported by a team, it changes the tone. It really does change the tone, particularly if they see that it's people that have I will say this, that have privilege, that are U.S. citizens, that are just there to support their community members or neighbors. It really does change the tone and could help with the outcome of the appointment or the check-in. So accompaniment teams is also something that we can help coordinate. Another important thing that we're hoping people take away from these presentations is we're trying to implement a protocol called SALUTE. What the SALUTE protocol is simply just gathering more information to report to the hotline. Because I think sometimes what we'll get is we'll get people saying, I see ICE in the community, can you send someone to verify? Well, I think what we need is a little more information, right? We need to know the size, how many agents do you see, how many vehicles do you see, the activity, what are they doing? Because sometimes we've had reports of people seeing ICE, but it turns out in one instance they were getting coffee at a local Starbucks. Again, we want people to report, but we just want to understand what it is that they're doing. The location, very important to give us, if you have an address or at the very least cross streets so that we know where to send the team out to verify. What are they wearing? What's their uniform? Because I think it's very misleading. Sometimes what the uniforms that they are wearing, it'll just say police, when in fact it could be ICE. But we want to know that. We want to know the color of the uniform. What's the lettering on the uniform? The time. We really are hoping people can call us when they're seeing something happening. Oftentimes we do get calls after the fact, which is still fine. We still document and track everything, but the time of the incident is really important. And of course the equipment. What are they possessing? What do they have? Weapons? Do they have batons? What exactly are they holding? This SALUTE protocol can help us make determinations when we should send out a verification team, but also to help determine if it in fact is ICE or if it's just some other type of law enforcement activity. I'm going to go through these really quickly. This is basically just our social media pages. So to stay up to date on activity in the community, we do encourage you to follow us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we post sightings, things that are verified, and also oftentimes also things that may be suspected as ICE activity. We just want to alert people. I think we've gone over this. The only thing I want you to remember out of this slide is that if someone has had an encounter with immigration, if there's a case pending, or if they were inspected at the border, or if they have any type of interaction with immigration, they will have what's called an alien registration number, the A number. The A number is probably one of the most important pieces of information that we can have. We do ask people to memorize their A number, memorize important phone numbers to call. I think most of us have cell phones. I think all of us have cell phones, and I would hazard to guess that many of us don't remember phone numbers, right? We just speed dial or just look them up in our phone. So we are encouraging people to remember phone numbers, because immigration will take your phone. So you won't be able to call anybody using your phone. But you can, if you remember the phone number, you could perhaps shout it out to someone that might be in the community. We've had that happen where people are being kidnapped and they shout out their phone number, their name and phone number to someone. That person videotaping can take that information, call the hotline, and report that incident happening. So those are important numbers to remember: A number, phone numbers of contact people, and of course the rapid response hotline. Alyssa already talked about this, building your safety network, the importance of a family preparedness plan. What will happen to your children if you are detained or deported? And we have had that situation where children are left behind without a caregiver plan in place. So we can help people prepare a family preparedness plan, which includes a caregiver's authorization affidavit that will give someone, a trusted person, the authority to take care of your children while when you're not here. And this actually can apply to everyone, not just people facing immigration, detention, or deportation. I mentioned the accompaniment teams. You can call the hotline to request an accompaniment team to join you at an appointment. You can also call our agency directly. We will coordinate that team for you. Again, we talked about the family preparedness plan, the importance of that. I think something really important about the Family Preparedness Plan to note is that it is not guardianship. You are not relinquishing parental control or parental rights. It is simply a caregiver's authorization affidavit. You're giving someone authority to care for your children for school or medical purposes, but you're not relinquishing your parental rights. That would be legal guardianship. That is an option available for people, but it is something that we want to make sure people fully understand what that might entail. But a caregiver's authorization affidavit does not require it to be signed by a notary or signed by an attorney. It's simply just an agreement between two individuals, and California has some really great templates you can follow. And in fact, they just recently passed a new bill that takes effect in January that will strengthen the caregiver rights. So I think that's really another thing to be happy living in California. I think California is really supporting the community. If someone is detained, there is a resource guide that we can share with you. It's a resource guide put out by the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice, what to do if someone is in detention. Right now, what we're facing is people being detained and taken to a detention facility within 48 hours. It's happening really fast. So when they're already in detention, then it's a whole nother system and process that you have to follow to be able to access visitation, get them the support they need, get them the legal help they need. And this guide provides you a great resource to guide you through the process. And we're also at ACLIEP, we're also in the process of developing a training to the community on how to follow this guide. And again, this is a rapid response hotline number. I think we'll end it here because I have a few more slides, but I'm very happy to share that with the league and perhaps share that with the community. But I'll scroll right through them so we can get to the end of the show. But essentially, it's about identifying what immigration looks like. What are the agencies involved in immigration enforcement? Here's a list of all of them. What are some of the uniforms that immigration officers wear? What are some of the vehicles that they're using? And what to look out for, what to kind of pay attention to in your neighborhood. What kind of vehicles are they using, the models and makes, where you can find distinguishing features on the vehicles. They oftentimes will have lights on the grille or the visor. Those are the kind of things that we can also train the community on identifying. Because as I said before, people are reporting all kinds of law enforcement. It would be great for them to know what an immigration enforcement vehicle or agent looks like. There's also something called the Be on the Lookout list. This gets put out by a variety of different groups. They've already identified vehicles by their license plate. So I think one thing I will say is that the community is really coming forward to protect its neighbors. And this is one way that they're doing it. They're actually documenting this vehicle took someone and these are the license plates. So then this is very helpful to us when people call the hotline, because we can look at this list and do a comparison. Is that vehicle actually on this list? Because sometimes we'll get calls saying, we see a government vehicle, it's got California exempt license plates. Those are not ICE vehicles. Those are government vehicles. So again, it's a way for us to be able to inform the community that that is not ICE that they're seeing. We need volunteers. We need people to go out, as Alyssa said, to document, bear witness, be our eyes and ears in the community so that one day, if we need to, we may be able to hold the administration accountable for due process violations. Because I think that's what, as Alyssa was saying, everyone has rights under the Constitution and rights are being actively violated. It feels a little bit helpless and hopeless right now, but the hope is that we document all these violations and one day we'll be able to hold people accountable. Because only the community can defend the community. This is a slide that was put together by Unión del Barrio after what happened in LA over the summer. And so they do these trainings again to let people know how the community can respond directly against this type of enforcement activity. And with that, I think we're done. We're done. So thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and I also brought a lot of handouts. I brought red cards. I brought flyers for ACLIEP. I also brought some door handle information sheets that has Know Your Rights on it. I also have samples of the family preparedness plan. So I have all of that with me to share. I have them in my bag. I can put them out on the table. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
This is actually quite a simple question. I'm wondering if you all have QR codes you can supply us that we can put on our website so that when we put this up, we have people can go to other places and get additional information. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. You can hear me? Okay. A question I've been asked is if you're driving a car and you get stopped, do you have to exit the car? And then a follow-up question. I was ACLIEP trained months ago, and several of us were called out weeks ago in the Sundale neighborhood, and we were told that the Hmong community was targeted. Is there any more information about what happened to those people? And also with the abducting of Afghans in Sacramento, what can we do to help and protect our Afghan community here?
Let me answer the last part, and I'll have Alyssa answer the part about the car. And so I would have to find out a little bit more about the Hmong community, but I think what we're seeing, as Alyssa shared, targeting of communities. And so since the DC shooting, now Afghan communities being targeted. I just attended a training that was put on by various different organizations that are supporting the Afghan community on Know Your Rights. It is always important to be very culturally responsive to communities when they're in crisis. And so I think right now we're going to be prioritizing a response to the Afghan community. So I have Know Your Rights cards that are in Arabic, and we're going to be working in close partnership with organizations like CARE, ANAR. These are all groups that support the Afghan community, and particularly here in Fremont. We know that there's a large Afghan community, so it's happening in Sacramento. We already have had a couple of families impacted in Castro Valley and in Hayward, and so we know that Fremont is a target. So we're going to be prioritizing those communities.
I wanted.
And the QR code, yes, that's definitely something. We're actually in the process of upgrading our website, and we'll be able to share some QR codes, additional materials with everyone. Yeah.
And the only thing I would say about vehicle issues is that, again, like our main focus is safety. So there are encounters that you have where they don't ask for anything other than license and registration. There are others where they ask you to exit the vehicle. So I would just follow what they're asking you to do, because that's a safety consideration.
This is a request to League of Women Voters as much or more than to the three of you, and that is the questions that have come to my mind are kind of at a broader level of what should be, what theoretically could be an appropriate relationship between communities and cities and a federal immigration enforcement system. We don't have that now. I think we all understand that. But what should it look like? You know, the year before Trump was elected, there was the effort in the Senate, and they almost came up with a new immigration bill. And I kept thinking, well, maybe that'll be really good, but I don't know. I don't know what it really ought to look like. So I would suggest to the League of Women Voters that there be a separate session that could talk more at a policy level, and I would expect that maybe all three of you, but one or more of you might want to come and offer your thoughts. That wasn't as much the focus here, so I don't think it's a good question to ask right now, but that would be my request.
I'm wondering if you have an opinion on the new bill introduced by a representative from Ohio outlawing dual citizenship. That'll really cause a lot of problems. Have you heard about that?
I've heard about it. I haven't studied it. There are so many proposals of laws that I rarely study them until they're actually in possibility of passage. The general issue is that the United States doesn't recognize dual citizenship except in very limited circumstances. So I'm not sure exactly what they would be outlawing, and the United States cannot tell other sovereign nations whether they're going to recognize dual citizenship or not. So it seems to me like noise, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Let me say about ACLIEP. I just got an alert that action from Oakland is a piece of session Philip alert sent out requests that down to the cathedral. It works.
So some of us are working with trying to adopt a corner to end on, and ACLIEP training has helped us kind of prepare for that. So given what you've presented to us today, I think you were answering the question. I'd really like to be able to tell those people to go to a formal training if they can, because I can't do that for them, or even find volunteers that would be feeling adequate in doing that.
Yes, thank you. I can also share resources with the League. There are a number of trainings happening. Adopt a Corner, Faith in Action is hosting more trainings. There's also Foot Patrol trainings, because we have seen, unfortunately, some suspected activity at schools. I think there was you might have heard there was a recent incident in Cherryland at a school where ICE came on the campus. And so Foot Patrols is another training that we can provide. And then I think there's going to be a series of trainings that will be held. And I'll be happy to share those resources with the League.
A couple of weeks.
Yes, because I think part of it is that we want to make sure that community members who are impacted are also participating as safely as they can, because I think we don't want to put people who could be directly impacted in harm's way, but we want them to have that information as well. And what's interesting is that the trainings are always put out to everybody, but we do generally not see a lot of community members that could be potentially impacted coming to those trainings. So the goal is to create more power within the community. Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, there was we got a notice, a text notice that there was some kind of an ICE action here in Fremont, and I just happened to be at some event where the mayor was sitting in the row behind me. I said, "So what's up? What's going on here?" And he sort of dismissed it and said, "Oh, it's just a knock and talk." What is a knock and talk?
Yeah, that was in, I believe, was it the Sundale? Yeah. That was so. As you're saying, we sometimes will get these notices very last minute. We were made aware of that knock and talk, which is a new tactic. It's something that we've never heard of before, and I think that's what's kind of frustrating, as Alyssa shared about what we're facing, is that there seems to be new tactics all the time. Right now, because of active litigation, the San Francisco Processing Center is closed. So it's closed for all kinds of processing. That sounds like a good thing. But the bad thing is that now they're immediately taking people to Stockton. So when someone is detained in our community, they're being taken to Stockton. So now our attorneys, instead of responding in San Francisco, are now driving to Stockton to try to support the people that are being processed. So different tactics are being tried. I think it only lasted a couple of hours, that incident, but as you can imagine, it created all kinds of fear. And once again, it was the Afghan community that felt most targeted. And so that was, I think, the first early sign that we need to be prioritizing that community. Because now with the memo that was issued on December 2nd, that community is incredibly vulnerable right now.
I'm curious, right here. I'm curious to see what you guys think about if someone has a check-in for ICE and they're afraid to show up. You gave some great examples about how to prepare. You advise that they show up because some of them don't want to show up. And I was like, what do? Do they show up and then have the preparedness plan, or do they not show up and then violate the fact that, put themselves at risk anyway? Well, what would you suggest?
It's hard to suggest anything in that circumstance because I can't tell people to not comply with their requirements. But I can tell people to think about what they want to do, and there's no good answer. If you don't present yourself to a check-in, ICE will come and look for you, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in 5 years, perhaps in 10 years. You don't know. And if you do show up, you may or may not be detained. So the issue at that point is to know what your risks are and to know how to prepare yourself for the worst and hope for the best. And as I said before, we can't even really give people a good idea of who's at greatest risk. It's an extremely difficult situation that people are faced with when they're in these ICE check-in situations, and there's just no good answer.
I just wanted to comment again on the Sundale incident. After that, I spoke with other members of the city council, and yes, the fear of losing federal funding is exactly why Fremont is not a sanctuary city.
I wanted to thank you for your presentations. Just a couple of comments. Actually, in 2024 and down in LA, in the Long Beach area, there was a district court decision against Mayorkas where they were doing knock and talk. It was found unconstitutional, but it's not nationwide. So we need to look at that. In terms of what Bill was saying, I was on the council when we approved our resolution as a sanctuary city, and it was only pitched to us as a resolution, not as an ordinance. I agree with you that the ordinance would be a lot stronger, but we are also a compassionate city. Those are two separate things, but now we're pitching it in terms of emphasis on being a compassionate city rather than a sanctuary city. But it was interesting you said Hippocratic accidentally. I think, and I'm not being critical, I'm just being analytical. If we were to try to push for a sanctuary city ordinance just based on what Valerie said, the likelihood would be we would undo being a sanctuary city even in resolution form. And I don't want to do any harm. So I think our best efforts are what we're doing here to not try, in what you were saying earlier, to how do we engage the community in the city. I want to do it in a way that is most effective for the people that are in need. So we have to, it's an ongoing conversation.
Okay, I'd love to thank you for your presentation today. It was very meaningful, and you have a lot of details, and thanks for sharing all the type of vehicles that ICE usually drives and which is the best hint to know, which is ICE. I also want to point out, as you mentioned, about the Afghan community being targeted the most, because I noticed that recently there was an issue going on at the White House where National Guards were surrounding, protecting the peace there. Some of the Afghan community members have engaged in an organization like their own troop, where they possessed rifles and start shooting the National Guards, as there were 2 or 3 young soldiers killed. And some of the National Guard soldiers were also like a person of color, just like Some of them, there's a female who's a 20-year-old. She was half a Latina and also white. And there's some other guys that were also white or some other like African American that were killed. But they're just doing their job. But then the Afghans were like this causing disruption. So then this had resulted in Homeland Security to hold some type of grudge against their community because of that. And because of what happened in history during 9/11. And they remember that, so that's why they decided to continue this way. And this is why it's made ICE to start targeting Afghan communities. I just want to point out.
Okay. Okay, my name is Judy Zlotnick. I'm the action chair for the League of Women Voters of Fremont-Newark-Union City. I'm also on the ministry for. This is what happens when you're 85. But anyway, I'm on the committee at Niles Discovery Church, the Social Action Committee. So we don't have time to talk now, but I would like to see us organize a get-together like they did at Washington Hospital on homelessness and the problems and how to solve them. So I'll be at the back table because we have things to pass out to you too. And give me your name and your phone number, and I'd like us to get busy on this. I think we're so unhappy so much of the time, okay? And thank you guys to give us some hope, okay? And we need to get together because it's not going to happen unless we get together.
Thank you. I have one question that's been sort of burning in me for even before we had you speaking, but this is a question for Jim, talking about sanctuary cities. I have a friend who has been undocumented in this country for more than 30 years, and she's quite terrified. And are there things like safe houses, sanctuary houses? What if I provided a safe house for my friend? Would I get in trouble? Or is that too much like Nazi Germany? Harboring a friend, giving them a place to live.
Harboring. I didn't mean to. I think Jim is going to respond, but all I said was you could be charged with harboring, which is furthering the undocumented presence of someone in the United States. So you need to think long and hard about what you would do and when you would do it and how.
Thank you.
Yeah, you need to think long and hard about it, but if you take a look historically, for example, with the civil rights movement, there are all different kinds of laws prohibiting individuals, African Americans from riding the front of the bus, court injunctions against protests. And this is the way that things happen, is that you take a good hard look at the law, and are you willing to take a chance and to violate the law? There are any number of underground organizations like the Underground Railroad that are taking people in, and yeah, they're doing it at risk, for harboring individuals. I mean, I can't think of a federal judge in the Northern District of California that will even bring the matter to trial. But things happen because people stand up and they say, this is not right. I know it's the law. I'm going to take the chance. That's the success of voting in America, women's rights, women's suffrage, civil rights movement, and so on. Yeah, leave it at that.
Do we have time for one more question, Andrea?
I just wanted to, probably not wise to respond to this particular issue, so a particular comment that was made today. But I just want to point out that, collective punishment doesn't really help anyone. If one person from a particular group does something horrible, that doesn't mean the billions of others are the same way. And the other thing is, we have people shooting up people in every school. All our children are unsafe. And yet the government is unable to do anything. So why is the government not going after people who are killing our children? And yet, because they find somebody with an ethnic difference, that they're going to go after them. And I think people who see that as an excuse to go after a whole ethnicity really need to ask themselves about their own level of bigotry and, where their stance justice is. I mean, our government's job is to protect the citizens. And our children are not safe. And it is not because of some Afghan. It is because of regular people, who are doing that.
Thank you, Saida. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of our guests, Jim, Alyssa, and Chris, for coming and enlightening us about the issue of immigration in our community, ICE raids, what to do, sanctuary cities. I just learned so much, and I don't know about anybody else, but on some level, I feel a little empowered knowing that there are agencies helping us and helping the community. And on another level, I'm feeling really sad. So that's all. So thank you very much. I also want to, at this point, thank everybody on the program team. Stand up if you're a part of the program team. Okay. We work hard to bring you these programs. We meet once a month on Zoom, and we plan this whole thing. And I think we've been feeling really satisfied with what we've been doing. So thank you for coming. We have a couple of thank you gifts for our guests. And our next program will actually be, our programs are always the first Saturday of the month. Our next program will be January 3rd. It's because it's part of a holiday weekend, we've decided not to have outside guests come, but we're going to watch a Commonwealth Club video together and discuss it. And this Commonwealth Club video is with Erwin Chemerinsky, who is the Dean of UC Berkeley School of Law, and it's his second time at Commonwealth Club, and the name of his talk is The Playbook of a Dictator, and we all know who he's talking about. So we invite you to come. It will be advertised in the, where we do our publicity, in the Tri-City Voice and through other means. So thank you very much. We appreciate your coming and learning with us.